Actually, our Lernhaus Soul, it started when we met in
Yeah.
Zurich
Yeah.
at Intrinsic.
Yeah.
Back then,
Intrinsic. I was
yeah,
trying to
it
remember
was at
the
Intrinsic.
name.
Yeah.
Intrinsic, yes.
And I was trying to find my way. Back then, I was a teacher
Yeah.
in public school, and what I knew was only that I didn't want to work like this anymore,
Oh,
and that was the only thing. And I was, trying to navigate and trying to find out what I should do differently. And so I met these people from Intrinsic, and I was invited to the event where you were in Zurich, and I came. So now my daughter is coming.
yes. And she should be able to interrupt us.
Krishni. Okay. So, like this, sometimes media is important.
Yeah.
For,
Wow. What year was this when we met? This was 2017, 18?
hey, I don't know. Yeah, probably
It was, I think,
like 8 years ago.
it was my first visit to Switzerland.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I think it was my first visit to Zurich, and it was my third event, a third space I was speaking in,
Yep.
and it was very funny because everywhere I was talking, people were having. I mean, they liked what we were doing, and but they were also a little bit dismissive. They were in every room full of kind of like older men. I was usually hearing the same thing. They're like, "Oh yeah, this is nice for India. This is nice for Africa. But we have a great education system. We have everything is fine. We don't need something else." And but like, yeah, what do I know? It's my first time to Europe, but I was still struggling to believe that everything can be fine. Um, that it should be. Yeah, it just doesn't seem right. And I mean, everybody knows Europe's history and all that has happened, and I kept asking myself that um, how can the education system of a country be fine, and yet it has contributed, yet the country has contributed to so much devastation and problems in the world and so much extractivism.
Yeah.
How are both the things true at the same time?
Yes.
It's like, how can Finland be the happiest country in the world and have extremely high suicide rate? Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I felt that,
Yeah.
I was in public school and I felt something was wrong.
Yeah.
And yet, my wife who founded this school, she tried to have me on board. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, how should we compete with a public education system that's free and we want to ask money? And it's how will children learn if they're just, self-directed?
Yeah.
How will they get a job later on? So I was somehow in between. I was questioning the traditional system, but at the same time, I couldn't imagine how it could be differently. So it inspired me very much to hear you talk about the nukes.
Yeah.
So you were like a guiding star for me since then. I always showed people the very first video I saw back then that you made with the people from the Nook. Always when I showed it to people, it gave me goosebumps because I knew it just felt right,
Yeah.
And what you said, how can the education system be right when it contributed to so much devastation? This is also one of my, core core values that I think we have to change.
Yeah.
And we are inspired very much also by Jesper Juhl. Jesper Juhl is from Denmark. He's very well known in Europe for his values, how to, interact with children and human beings in general. I don't know how to translate it to English because he speaks of Gleichwürdigkeit, like being somehow, we have the same dignity, like a shared dignity
Yes.
with children, with other people. And this is his core value.
Yeah.
And he's also speaking about responsibility
Yes.
as values, like personal responsibility
Yeah.
and social responsibility. And he argues that you can only really take social responsibility
Yeah.
when you're also able to take personal
Personal
responsibility. So you have to know your your own needs first. You
Yeah.
have to be able to also care for your own needs.
Yeah.
And our educational system doesn't let anyone
No.
care for their own needs. It just says you do that. This is the level. It has to be like this.
Yeah.
And we're like in competition all
Yeah.
the time. And then somehow I think later we have to compensate that
Yeah.
by big consumption,
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
just extracting and making
Yeah.
ourselves more valuable, even though it's just
Made up.
Yeah.
Completely made up.
yes. And right now everything, I think it's all falling apart.
No, completely. Completely. I mean, it's,
So we're 8 years later,
Yeah.
and we saw it coming.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah,
And
it's-
we can finally talk about it,
Yes.
and people feel it.
yeah, and nobody's throwing stones. No, that is. I always questioned this this idea. Why is it that schools in general or education systems do not encourage people to find happiness? Like, why is it, like, this was a very common running joke for us, like, when we were growing up, and I don't know how it is in Switzerland, but in India it's very commonly heard in a household that you should work hard, you should study hard, and then when you're an adult and you get a job, that's when you'll have all this happiness and freedom, and and you can do whatever you want.
So they tell their children
Yeah,
just what the Swiss parents tell
Yes,
theirs.
exactly. It's the same sentence in a different language.
Yeah.
I always find it's hilarious how it's the same marketing in every home. And I used to ask, like, if you want me to be happy after 25 years, why are you stopping me from being happy now? It's like, I want you to become a chef in 25 years, so I don't let you cook. Like that, how does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, and then I realized, but that's exactly what. Like, why would somebody accept being an adult and accept all of this life being taken away from them? People leave villages, their land is taken away, their identity is taken away. They come to cities, their air, the clean water is taken away, their time is taken away. They can't spend time with their children, they have nothing left. Uh, how would they voluntarily give up these things if they were allowed to look for happiness? And then this is
Yeah, because it's like this circle. It starts there.
Yeah.
They have been told themselves as children that this is not going to be possible. That you have to do this all first until you can become happy. And most of them didn't really become happy later, right? So, but they just believed it, and they believed that they had to do all this and they had to go through this. So,
Yeah.
if we want to change things, imagine. I mean, you as an adult have to go back to your inner child and accept that you could have had
Yes.
a happier childhood.
Yes.
This is very hard to accept.
very hard. This trauma, I do this experiment several times with people where I ask them, close your eyes and tell me, what do you remember from your school time? And 100% of people always say the same thing: hanging out with friends, playing in the hour, like the 15 minutes in between the lectures. It's always that. This is a very common trauma response. Like, you remember the small pieces of happiness and you completely forget, shut out all the the difficult stuff that happened, all the bullying that happened, all the humiliation that happened. You've locked it and put it in a closet, and it's in the corner of your mind, never to be opened again.
Very deep under. Yeah.
And I've taken sometimes to some adults who wanted to work in education. I took them, I said, hey, okay, let's sit in a classroom, just 1 hour every day, and you do what every other children does. That's all you have to do. If you can survive 7 days, welcome. You can work in education. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. That's how they should start.
Yes,
know,
that's how every teacher should start.
The teachers, yes,
But nobody wants to be student again.
because they escape.
Yes.
Yeah.
The maximum length that anybody has done that so far with me is 4 days. Nobody lasted beyond 4 days. And everybody said the same thing. It's too humiliating. It's too humiliating being a child in a classroom.
Yeah.
It's nicer being the person in authority, being, it's everybody's okay being a teacher, but nobody wants to go back to being the student. And the only reason children survive it is because they're so flexible. They're so that they're able to,
And needy.
yeah,
They are dependent
yeah,
to the adults.
yeah,
And everyone tells them they have to
they're
do that.
completely reinforced.
Yeah.
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 This,
And also love, the parental love
Yeah.
is dependent on how you perform in school.
Yeah.
With very many families.
Validation.
And the system also comes and puts the parents under pressure and says, hey, you have to make sure that your children
Don't give them love.
do their
if they-
homework.
They
Yeah.
don't do their homework.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
And if you do give them love, you're being, socially punished by the system later because you are a bad parent.
You're a bad
Don't
parent.
support the system. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's rooted so deep within.
Tell me about I mean, obviously the Swiss schools have far more money than average schools in the world, right? And there is, I think education is free for the most part, for most families. Now even and that is what I was told, that hey, there's so much resources.
Yeah.
The teachers are so well trained. How can our education system be a problem, right? So what's the problem with the system?
Yeah, well, they're too well trained.
Yeah.
And how they're trained is, I did the teachers training at the high school for pedagogy in Zurich, and I hated it, I have to say. You learn how to break down any topic in the world into small pieces and feed them to the children. And you plan a lesson. It's these 45 minutes, and you're being tested on how well you have thought through a lesson. For example, you have to think at the same time. So there are these columns. You have to, what do the children do? What does the teacher do? What do the children think? What do they, you have to
family.
this steering of the class, which is at the end called, classroom quality, and you're being measured and you're doing a test on that. And this is just what
Just
you do.
corporate training, is it?
This planning. It's incredible, And then later, obviously, also as a teacher, you believe that and you do that, and today it fails. It doesn't really work anymore.
Right.
I was talking to a children's doctor like 3 days ago. There was this huge TV show in Switzerland called Rundschau, and it was focusing on children that don't go to school anymore. They refuse to go to school. There's somewhat 10,000 children all over Switzerland who refuse to go to school. And then I read on LinkedIn yesterday from official statements of the children's hospital in Zurich that the main reason for children to come to the children's hospital today is because they're not going to school.
Wow.
So they're clinically testing these children. What's wrong with them? They have to be sick. Something has to be done. And I always say, it's this chain, and the children are the weakest part of this chain in the system, and they break first. So there is this overwhelming situation in the world today, where there's war in Europe again. We couldn't have imagined that, so it's, I think, pressuring the people, everything's getting more expensive. Also, there are much more tensions, I think, within the families. We have social media, we have information overflow. And I read this book by Yuval Noah Harari, who said, in a world like this, where you have so much information, the last what you have to do is give the children more information. And yet school is all about, putting, I don't know the English word for it, the Trichter in German, this thing, and then, put the information in, the funnel. Exactly. So, and it goes out, they vomit it on the test and it's gone. And I see my children growing up, they never went to a regular school. They never were taught anything. Obviously, they're being taught in these micro situations when they ask questions. You have a lot of questions. Children have so many questions. And they learn everything what the other children learn too. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later. That's not a problem. But they know what they like to do. They have their passion and their flow, and I think they're happy children. And I don't see that in many other children, you
No,
know, and we see that in the children's hospital now.
Yeah.
And the resources, you asked about the money.
Money.
That's going. I mean, the answer is always more money.
Yeah.
I mean, last year I checked what a child costs in average a year in the Swiss educational system. Their official numbers from the Swiss government. It was 22,600. I checked again today because someone asked. It went up. The average number is now 23,400. So it went up about 1,000 a child a year.
year.
And yet the problems are growing.
yeah.
Nobody wants to work in school anymore. There's so many teachers
Yeah,
missing.
dropouts.
Something is going wrong.
This is all. I'm now beginning to understand how the teachers are leaving the system. And
Yes.
that's also like a real question mark. But I find this thing very funny that children will always ask questions. I mean, they ask questions at home, at school, and in schools in India when we were growing up, questions were not not considered nice. You were being impolite if you were asking too many questions.
Exactly.
And yet,
You're blowing up the flame.
you were, and the nobody ever, like, it took me so many years to understand that that's the human biological mechanism that is designed for you to learn. But somewhere in your genetics, your body knows that you are supposed to learn, and it makes you ask questions. And this natural curiosity is what helps you achieve your basic human potential. It's not, and we take that away and instead replace those questions with questions that a state or a government or an authority wants you to remember answers for.
Yes.
How can this be good for the child?
It's not. It was good for economy. It
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
It was.
Even that, though.
Because, I mean, if we go back to industrialization, I mean, we had these wonderful inventions, and there were some few people that invented the stuff, and they're holding the patents, right? And then we needed a lot of people to produce the stuff.
In
and
bad
to
conditions.
get it in these value chains and sell it to people for the maximum price and to get the most profit out of it.
Yeah.
And it was Taylorism, right? Taylor, I think he was an English economist who, tried to make it even more efficient, these production
Like a
lines.
supply chain.
So the supply chains, we had to separate it into pieces. It's not like we made a whole shoe anymore. The whole creative process around designing a shoe was broken down to someone who did it, and then some other people, someone made the I don't know the different parts of the shoe in English.
sole,
But anyway, the
lace.
sole, the lace, whatever, and in this production line. And I mean, who wants to do that?
No one.
Be honest. I mean, even me, I designed this school together with my wife as my playground, as a sandbox, because I want to be doing different things.
Whole
Above
things,
speaking with you right now, having you as guests here, sometimes maybe cutting a podcast, recording something in the audio studio, doing a video, 3D printing something. I want to be doing different things, and especially I want to be in relation with people.
Yes. Yeah.
And we had to train these human beings that they don't want to be doing that anymore, or that they don't know what they actually want to be doing, and that they know that at the end of the month they're gonna be, marked by someone who tells them, you met the
natural,
quality, you're getting something, and we needed this.
Yeah.
And we got to the point where we are right now. I mean, these wonderful inventions, thank you for all the people who were enslaved somehow by economy that led us here now. But now we're automating everything.
And that's
We're
gonna
automating everything, so it breaks the chain.
it completely breaks the chain.
And now that people don't know anymore
Yeah.
what they should be doing, how they should reorientate, how they should make money,
Yeah.
the value chain where you generate value is going away from the linear that can do the machines, right? The algorithms, and going back to where it's non-linear,
Non-linear,
where it's with
chaotic.
people. And we need a different educational system for that. But it's so deeply rooted within everyone and within these trauma and the people that it's so hard to change. And that's why I always cite, you know, what's his name from the Wired magazine again? Kevin Kelly. He said that innovation, you know, grows within small places outside of the orthodox system where it can grow and show their values and be adapted without being crushed by the orthodox system. And that's what we're doing. You know, to just open up these places. And this is why I feel so much attached to the Nooks, because it's exactly what we need to be doing to empower people wherever. And wherever you look in educational systems, they all don't work anymore.
No, they don't.
What works are Nooks.
No, the fact that the education system is able to break your relationship with nature, with people, even with yourself, and turn you into this empty shell that now starts believing that the only way to succeed in life is to have a slightly better car and a slightly better house and a slightly more money than yesterday, and maybe I eat slightly better food than yesterday, and that's it. You know, that's all living is all about. You know,
It's so poor.
it is so poor. And you know, there's so much there's all this evidence from America and its own industrial history, where the big challenge for them was when they're looking for people to work in these factories. Ultimately, they're looking for people who are living in villages, and these people who are living in villages have big land, nice house, you know, clean air, great water, no 9 to 5 job. Why the hell are they gonna come and work? You know, what will inspire them to come to a factory where they risk their lives? You know, inhale smoke by the kilo. Why would they come and work? Unless you take them when they are 3 years old and start programming them to believe that the place where they come from, that is backward, that is unnecessary, that is people who are uneducated and illiterate and don't add any value to society. And then by the time this person turns 20, they have started believing that they are educated, but their parents are illiterate. They are first generation learners. They are now going to move to the city where progress is. You know, and they live in a tiny house but looking at a very big glass building, and now feel, okay, now successful, I have achieved something and I have moved forward. Meanwhile, their company sends them back to take the land from their own people, to take the water and just take. Yeah, you know, it is a
It's so crazy.
yeah.
But we do that
We do that everywhere.
still.
We do that everywhere, and this is the common denominator, I feel. People think that education systems around the world are very different, but they're not that different. You know, yeah, sure, a school may be, you know, very rich and a lot of money put in, or a school might not even have the roof. There may be 100 teachers or maybe 10 teachers, and maybe they do horse riding for a while.
Exactly.
But it doesn't change
Yeah.
the fact that they are extractive. They
Yes.
teach us extractivism.
Yeah. They're directive.
Yeah.
They're I fully agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has been when you started talking to people around, and that must be parents, that must be children, that must be administrators, local government, and what did they say on that?
Many of them shook their heads, you know, and they couldn't believe what we do, you know, because they said, well, society is like that. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, you have to
Yeah.
prepare them. What do they do? How do they change back into the system? And I say it's not about, changing back into the system, but
Yeah.
actually, finding your own passion and, living a life in dignity
Yes.
that is really connected to what you'll want to be doing. And then maybe they won't work in a regular company. Maybe they will be self-employed later. But it's not about making people compatible
Yeah.
for this society. We don't have to keep asking ourselves this question.
Yep.
We have to go back and ask ourselves, how do we enable people to grow to the best version
Yeah.
of themselves? This is what we should be asking ourselves.
100%.
And I think if we don't do that, we're going to have
Yeah.
very, very big problems in our society very soon, because the world is changing right now.
I really believe this. I mean, there's a very old one, right? It takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
But I also feel that it takes a child to raise a village.
Yeah, here you go. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
this idea somehow that children have to fit into a narrative of society, a narrative of industry, that they just have to keep fitting in, is I mean, like who said that? Why should the industry not become what children eventually grow up to be,
Yeah.
as opposed to making them fit into the industry?
Yes.
And then when you see that, and then you see that how children are labeled as failures in the classroom, you realize that makes sense, because there's no other product in the world that says the user is wrong. Like if you bought a Samsung phone and it didn't work,
Oh, I have to. Yeah.
if it didn't work, Samsung can't say you are a failure. You failed at using our phone. That just would make zero sense. Only at school where it doesn't work. Also, you have failed.
Oh. Hey, Abhijit, I guess in 20 years' time,
Yeah.
the world will laugh with us.
Yeah,
Maybe some people who listen to it now will still shake their heads.
they have to. Yeah.
But you say it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I think in 100 years, there won't be any classrooms anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and this is where it starts.
Yes.
In safe places, in villages,
Yes.
so the children can grow a village, right?
Yes. 100%. Awesome. Well,
Thank you so much.
so nice.
So cool.
Yeah.
So great you're here. Thank you.
No, it's such a pleasure. Thank you. Ding.